Osiris is the founder of the Jedi Knights. D-J-E-D-I. You thought the Jedi came from Star Wars, didn't you? No. Star Wars copied that from the text, from the Kemet information. Osiris is the originator of the Jedi. I taught this in my Egyptian mystery school, which is on Forbidden Knowledge TV. So the Jedi Knights did not originate in Star Wars in Hollywood. They originated because they actually are part of the Osirian system. And who is Osirian? Who is Osiris and the Osirian? It's Orion, the belt of Orion. Those stars have planets orbiting them. The origins of the Jedi come from that region of the sky, according to the text. So we're talking about the constellation of Orion moving in coordination with Earth, with the alignments on Earth, which align with Orion. And it's said that those alignments happen every 13,000 years, which is right about now. And that when those alignments occur, the Jedi rise and awaken again. So we're living in the time of the rise of the Jedi right now. This is the time to rise and become the Jedi. What does Enlil have to do with Epsilon? So I start digging and digging and digging, and I find out that Epsilon is actually owned, according to the Sumerian tablets, Epsilon is owned by Enlil. Yeah, he owns it. It's his constellation. The star Bootis is his star, meaning he probably comes from that sector of the galaxy. He probably came from a planet that orbits that star. Enlil, Mesopotamian god of the atmosphere, and a member of the triad of gods, the original, this triad. There was three of them. It was Enlil, Enki, and Anu. That's the Trinity. That's where the Trinity actually originally came from. Let us make man in our image. That was said by Enki, his brother. That wasn't said by God. That wasn't said by the creator of the universe that you think said it. It was said by Ea Enki, the person that the earth is named after. Ea is his first name, Ea. Ki meaning earth. That's the ancient translation into earth. Earth is named after this Anunnaki. So if you had any doubts about who the Anunnaki were, the planet you're on is named after one of them. And Enki is the one who said, let us make man in our image. That made it into the biblical text that came from the Anunnaki, Enlil's brother. And the very first recipe for beer, at the British Museum, that's where it exists, is on a Sumerian tablet. And it says that the great god Anu, they're talking about the Anunnaki and these beings, they bestowed the recipe for beer onto mankind. And they gave us the recipe on how to brew hops, or how to, do the hops to make the beer and all that, ferment the hops and all this stuff. It's all on ancient tablets. We didn't invent beer. It was given to us. The knowledge of how to make it was given to mankind. Something you can actually go travel and see that tablet with your own eyes. Crazy stuff. This is why I like this stuff. It's pretty interesting. What we kind of think we know about the ancient past, based on what we learned in school, is not even close to true reality. And to me, couldn't some of this text be, based on the person's own perception who wrote it and etched it? Yeah, of course it is. But I think that the further back you go, the closer you get to real information. You're never going to get 100% of the information, because it's people that are making these texts. But when somebody goes through the trouble of using a stylus and a wedge in wet clay and turning it into stone so they can last through the ages, and we're talking about thousands and thousands of years ago, we're getting as close we can, as close as we can possibly get to the actual facts. Adam had Cain and Abel, and Yahweh came back to check on his offerings one day. And one was bringing him the harvest, one was bringing him the lamb, and one got jealous because he kept taking the harvest. And he's like, I'm pissed off, I'm gonna kill my brother, right? So Cain kills Abel, and God comes back like he doesn't know this. He's supposed to be all-knowing and omnipotent. He doesn't know that this happened. He's shocked that this happens. And he says, I gotta kick you out of the garden. And so Cain says in the Bible, he says, the people out there will kill me. Wait, what people?
I thought there's no people.
I thought there was no people out there. There's people out there already. Matter of fact, they might be barbaric. So he says, don't worry, I will put my mark on you. See, that's the brand. Put my brand on you. So he said, so that they will know your minds. So he put a brand on and let people know, hey, no, that's Enlil's guy. Don't mess with him. Exactly. That started the whole Canaanites. See? That's where the Canaanites came out and built the whole thing and eventually migrated over to Mesoamerica. So we're talking about, it's a big story, man. It's a really, really big story, but you can see where there's so much misinformation and
So Jesus, good guy or bad guy?
I believe it was a good guy. Could race be a result of a particular gene from the people that ruled over a region of us on the planet? And here's what I found out. Scientists, geneticists discovered that there's a 2% variance in genes between races. In other words, what makes me a person that's dark-skinned with more melanin in my skin than you who's more fair-skinned with slightly less melanin in your skin is not because my ancestors, were in the Sahara Desert, working in the desert underneath the hot sun all day. And that's what they teach you in school. The reason why my skin is this way is because I'm genetically branded, and so are you. You're genetically branded. And so are the indigenous peoples of all the other continents on the planet. We're genetically branded by why? The person who ruled over us gave us a brand, just like they brand a cow and say, oh, that's Farmer Jim's cow. Don't touch them. You see the brand right there? But when these people spread out around the planet to rule over different regions of the planet, they genetically branded the people they ruled over to resemble them. And that's why Asians look different, and Caucasians and Africans and the red man, indigenous tribes of the Americas and the Aboriginals all look different, but all are still Homo sapiens. It's because there's a genetic branding. They said that a 2% variance would take multi-millions of years to happen in natural evolution, and yet it only happened in 200,000 years. So it tells us something interesting, that this is an artificial mutation that was done on purpose to create a specific group or specific races or groups of people that resembled, let us make man in our image, if you know what I mean. I'll start with Lemuria. When you look at, the culture coming out of the Aboriginals out of Australia, even the Aboriginal elders that I've talked to still have handed down verbal history of Lemuria, and it being an island that now has since sunk off the coast of Australia. In some ways, it was even kind of connected, but that they were seeded on this planet. This is not Billy Carson saying this. This is the Aboriginal elders, thousands of years handed down verbal history, that they were seeded on this planet in Lemuria by Pleiadians. The Pleiadians brought them to this planet and seeded them in Lemuria and helped build a golden age there in Lemuria, a spiritual golden age. Okay, a spiritual, something, not tech, consciously spiritual, where people had the capability of telekinesis, psychic abilities, speaking to each other without opening their mouths and so forth and everything, and navigation through, the geomagnetic fields, using the magnetite crystals in their brain and everything else. At some point, there's a corruption that happened and that island did sink, but the Aboriginals sustained on Australia, which are still there till this very day. And there's still even remnants of these Pleiadian hieroglyphs, which I've seen with my own eyes in Australia when I went there a few years ago, out in the outback. I went for a walkabout in the outback with some Aboriginals. We went out and we saw these glyphs, and to date, nobody in the world has been able to decipher these hieroglyphs, but they have been dated 5,000 years old based on the patina inside the carvings of the glyphs. You can date that organic material. They're 5,000 years old. He had magic science. Magic science translates as advanced technology. So he begins to show them his technological doodads that he had, and the people dropped to their feet immediately. But guess what he said? Guess what he does? He released them. In other words, he said, "No, stop." Don't drop down to your knees and grovel at my feet. Come on, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. Let me show you what's going on here. Let me enlighten you. I'm not God. I'm a son of Atlantis and one of its messengers. You see? People say, well, why do you talk about this being thought so much? And why do you study it so much? Why did you write a book? because there's many of these ancient quote unquote gods with lowercase g's in ancient texts, and a lot of them are actually masquerade as gods. In other words, they deceive the people, and they actually make the people think that they truly are a god, so that they can manipulate the people into doing what they wanted them to do. Versus where Thoth was the complete opposite. The complete opposite. That's why I had so much respect for his technique and his angle that he came. He was bringing wisdom, knowledge, languages, building techniques, right? And he didn't charge any money. He didn't make you grovel at his feet. He didn't make you pray to him. That's why I focused on this guy. And I do mean guy because he wasn't a god, and he said he wasn't a god. He said, I'm a son of Atlantis. He even calls himself a son of man several times in this book, which is what? Very reminiscent of the terminology that Yeshua, aka Jesus, uses in the modern day New Testament of the Bible, where he calls himself what? The Son of Man. Hieroglyphs can convey a complete ideology. One hieroglyph can convey a complete understanding of something. It doesn't mean just one word. A glyph can mean many things. Even if you look at, for example, the glyph for Om, right? The little 3, it looks like a little squiggle on the side, the Om glyph. It doesn't mean a letter or a word. It means it's a complete ideology, complete understanding. And some of these hieroglyphs have the same exact purpose. So you're taking these glyphs and you're etching these stories with double entendre meanings into sandstone on top of electromagnetic active areas. Now you're creating frequencies that allow this communication or this light language to begin to work. And the person that has the capability of tapping into this or understanding what the energy they're picking up and discerning it through the body now can communicate through this language of light. It's a very powerful way of communicating. And now in these modern days, we use emojis. So we've got the downgraded version of the glyphs. We're back to hieroglyphs again, but it's just in emojis.